Welcome, my friends. This is basically a conversation with me, Ed Walker, about the Community Preservation Act. Now, there's been a lot of talk about it. There's a history here, and we might go into that a little bit, but I think what we're going to talk about today is not to hammer the thing, but just to be basically the reasons why we're against it. All right? That's what I want to try and do anyway, but if you want to get up and yell and screech and holler about it, that's all well and good too. But basically, this is for the voters of Woburn because it's on the ballot at the next election, which is in November. So anybody that doesn't vote don't have to pay attention. Or maybe you can, maybe you might learn something and get on and register to vote. But I'd like to start by introducing Mike Meaney from the Woburn Business Association.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks for having me on.
Mike Anderson, Ward 4, no competition, must be doing a good job.
I hope so. I think so.
And Mrs. Bruen from Ward 5, never has any competition over there.
Well, that's not true.
Everybody's happy when they're not running against
Well,
So I think what we'll do first is start off, and I think everybody knows their position. The pro-CPA people have had 3 or 4 programs on, and they go through all the stuff that they believe is true, which we don't believe is true. For one thing, I believe it's a tax.
I believe it's a tax.
Now,
And
they
I think
call it a
there's smoke and
surtax.
mirrors there,
So,
too.
we have a lawyer here, but we're not going to get into that because I don't know the difference between a surtax and a tax. But it goes on your tax bill, so as long as it's on the tax bill, I think that's enough evidence for me. The other thing is, the money started off when they started off with this. When was this put into effect? Around 10 years ago?
Yeah, Governor Salucci, I think Governor
Oh,
Salucci's
Salucci, yeah, he did it, yeah.
first term elected, so he took over from Governor Well, but he...
that was the greatest
I think it was like
pandering.
2003.
That was the greatest pandering to the people that ever came down the pike. Huh? Let's do something for the people. We'll put up some dough, and they can go out and get some signatures, and they can get the money. But it was $1 for $1, and now it's like 31 cents. And the legislature, as we know, you guys study this stuff, never has enough money, so it keeps going down and down and down, and that's the first thing that they do is cut that. But they did replenish it once with $25 million, which I wonder where they got that, because we're looking for a bridge to be built, and they just slide $25 million over like it's nothing. And the other thing is, I think it's building a bureaucracy, because there's a 9-member board. They don't get elected. They're just friends of friends and whatever. And then they have to have an office. They have to keep records. They have to have. They're gonna have, if they win, they have to have money. So then they have to have auditing and letters and all that kind of stuff reported. And I think over a period of time, whether the mayor gives them the space, but they get to spend some of that money that they get from the state, tax money, to have offices and oak desks, rugs on the floor.
Like I told you last weekend, that the main office, the CPA Community Preservation main office is on Milk Street in Boston.
Yeah, rent
And
is
that is the very high end of the rent district in Boston. So, I mean, and obviously that is being paid for by the CPA fund itself.
So I've been around long enough to know that that's how the government gets bigger. You know, I mean, that's how the government must have gotten big. I'm not a historian, but I think, you know, when the city of Woburn first started, the lawyers and investment bankers and people who come from here and settled here, and all of a sudden they say, we got to have somebody watching the conservation people. So they hired somebody and gave them an office and said, you go do it, or you be the building inspector, or you be whatever we need to have, right? That's how the government gets bigger and bigger. And I think over a period of time, this operation will probably be absorbed into the government too, depending on who the administrator is of the city. Yeah. So that's just my opening feelings about the whole thing. So Mike, you want to speak for the Business Association?
Well, like I said to you last week, not only as a resident and a voter of the city of Woburn, I am against it. Yeah. And because of the position I work for, the board of directors of the Woburn Business Association, we are against it as an association as a whole. 450 members, the Woburn Business Association, took an online survey and overwhelmingly 3-1 voted to have us stage some opposition to the CPA because of the adverse effect it's going to have on their bills. The homeowners, the smoke and mirrors is, like I said, you know, I've seen numbers started at $13 on your tax bill all the way up to $54 on your tax bill, depending on the valuation of your house. That's for the homeowners. Now the businesses, You know, for every $1 million, it's $489 on a million. And like I showed you before, there's 393 businesses from 800,000 all the way up to 64 million in the city of Woburn. So, I mean, so those tax bills for those businesses are significantly going to go up. And I don't think that, you know, the people realize that. I understand that everybody has a passion for what they believe in, and they think they can do this and they think they can do that. But like I said to you last week when I was on the show with you, that I think the city of Woburn's being very well run. And these two aldermen right here are a testament to that. They do a good job. They voted against the CPA Act. They voted to make them get, well, they didn't vote against it. They voted to make them get the signatures to go on the ballot. They were 2 of the 4 aldermen that voted to have them get the signatures to get on the ballot, because they gave them a free pass a year ago and let them on the ballot, and it was defeated for the second time in the city of Woburn. Whether it was 100 votes or it was 100,000 votes, it was defeated, and that's what we have elections for. The people of Woburn spoke twice, as they did in 2004. So, like I said, I have the utmost respect for the city council. I think they made an error in letting them put this back on the ballot, not these 2 aldermen. That's why I had asked them to come up here today. But, you know, I have a history in my family with my father being on the city council and my brother being on the city council. So I have total respect for the city council. And I don't agree with every decision they make, and I agree with some of the decisions that they make. But, you know, we can't have it, you can't have everything. And we have to live with the decisions they make. And I think this was a bad decision that the city council made to put that back on the ballot.
Michael.
All right, well, it's a very well-intentioned piece of legislation, but it does
so.
not come free. And it comes from 3 sources to pay for it. And one is, it's a tax, okay? It's a tax on your bill. It was done to put it on the ballot so quickly. I voted against it first time it was to put it on the ballot. I think it's something that the city should consider, but did not think it was onerous for people to go out and get the signatures to put it on the ballot. I thought, go get the signatures, just like everyone else has to get signatures to put something on the ballot. Get signatures, put it on the ballot. We didn't do that the first time. It got voted down. People say that it was, the placement. I've spoken to the city clerk. He does not believe placement had anything to do with it. I've looked at the ballot. I don't think placement had anything to do with it. Regardless, it came up a second time. Again, I thought, make them do the work, put it on the ballot, get the signatures. I think we did I think the city council made a mistake. Darlene and I voted against it, so did Alderman Concanon and Haggerty. They felt the same way. Whether they believe in the CPA or not, they did think that, we've already voted on it once, deal with it. People talk about our money from Woburn. On every real estate transaction, there's $20 that goes into the CPA fund. If you can find anywhere on any website, any information that indicates exactly how much that is on an annual basis, I'll pay you $1. But you can't find it.
Wait a minute, don't clear that up for me now. What are you looking for?
So on every real estate transaction in Middlesex County,
okay,
there's a $20 fee.
Okay.
And from the amount that's derived from Woburn, a lot of people will say, well, that's reason enough to adopt the CPA. That's our money going outside the city. I'm here to tell you, I don't think that that's a large sum of money.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, to justify this $1 million tax, which is what it is on an annual basis. If you're talking a $100 million levy, which it's actually more than that, but you're talking over $1 million tax.
Okay.
So it's not being paid by the surcharges, I'm telling you, that are on the at the Registry of Deed. It's going to be paid for by the charge on your bill, and also whatever funds the Commonwealth of Massachusetts puts into it.
Which, by the way, come from the taxpayers.
Which, by the way, comes from the taxpayers. Now, in our city, another reason to be against this is we have large projects that are coming down the pike. We have the library, we have the Harold Wyman School, we have the fire station, and I believe we should also have a parking garage. Those are huge projects that are going to cost money. CPA that are going to have to be vetted through the city council with the mayor and be appropriated, where we do a levy, we tell the taxpayers that we're taking this much money and it's going to be paid in this account and this is how we're going to pay for it. The CPA, you're getting taxed. They call it a surcharge. It's a tax. It goes into a fund, but you don't have any idea where that money's going. That's being taken to be determined later, and I don't think that's right. I think it needs to be vetted. It has to really go through the process, especially where we have these additional costs that are coming down the pike. People keep saying, well, it's only $50. Well, it's $50 a year. and it's $50 on top of only $50 for the library, and only $50 for the fire station. I mean, these things add up. And what about the labor contracts? How is that going to get paid for? So we're at a low tax base, that's true, but we're going up. And we have to keep our eye on what's going on. And I think, every penny counts, and to blithely say, I mean, as Michael said, I mean, these are huge impact, not just on residents, but businesses, who, by the way, don't get a vote.
No, they don't. And like I said to you before, businesses pay a personal property tax on every piece of equipment that they own in their office space.
Yep.
And when I spoke to the Treasurer Donovan on Friday, he gave me a number of $6 million in 2015 that was paid into the account from just businesses. So that's another hit the businesses take, and they're willing to do it because they like to work in Woburn.
Yep.
It's a great place to work. It's got a great location on 93 and 128. And the businesses in Woburn substantially make our living as residents easier. So we have to deal with a lot of issues, and I understand that. And
part of the attractiveness is our low tax rates.
Correct.
And the more we keep putting
Business
it
is
up,
happy, but when you start throwing stuff like this, and then, at them, like I told you, Burlington shot it down right at town meeting. Didn't even get a second on the floor because they vetted it very, very thoroughly. Jack Farron on the town council up in Burlington, they have a different format, they have a town council. They didn't even get a second off the floor because of the stuff, the negativeness that was going on with the paperwork, the board, giving the money to the state, and then they don't match it back at 27 cents a dollar. You have 600,000, they give you 180,000. You want to do a project for $1 million, now you're still 300,000 short. Where does that come from?
That's come from? That's going to come from the budget. And the other thing, I know Darlene wants to say something, but I just want to jump in. This is an unelected board that would be put into place with little accountability. I mean, at least if it goes through the appropriation process, you have elected officials who are accountable for spending the money. And I just, this jumps that. On top of that, maybe it is a good idea. Maybe it would be worth trying. But if we try it and you have it for 1 year, you can't get rid of it for 5 years.
Yeah.
You're stuck with it for at least 5 years.
Yeah, and I understand.
And what's it going to be like, the next Quinn bill?
5 years,
Yeah.
That's right. Go ahead.
So to follow on what Michael said, it absolutely is taxation without representation. We have elected officials who are there. We do a pretty good job deciding what projects need to be done. But to go back a little bit further, when the vote first came to the city council to put it back on the ballot, I didn't vote for it the first time. I certainly didn't vote for it for the second time. And I think there is something to be said about going out and knocking on the doors and asking people, will you put your name on a piece of paper to get this on the ballot? When you get face to face with someone and ask them to put their signature on something, they're going to ask you a lot of questions.
Yeah, right.
And when you ask a lot of questions, all of a sudden people go, maybe that's not such a good idea. And the way I know that is when I'm out knocking on doors and I bring up the CPA or somebody asks me about it and I explain to them what I know about it, they're like, wait a minute, that's a tax. Yes, indeed, it's a tax.
That's right.
So that was my biggest issue, was just putting this on the ballot. I think they got to skirt the whole thing by not doing the work. And if the support is that big for this, we're not, 3,000 is not something that's difficult to overcome if you have hundreds of people that are behind this effort. It's not. But what is hard to overcome are those conversations when you have to look the taxpayers in the eye and explain to them why they're putting their name on that and do they support it or not. So number one, that's why I didn't support it. Number two, you can call it whatever you want, but it's a tax. End of story. It is another tax, and it started out. What did it start out to be for? Open space, right? So where are we now? We're open space, historical preservation, recreation commission,
and affordable housing.
And affordable housing. So it went from let's protect open space to adding 3 more things. Who's to say we're not going to add 15 other things?
Where's the end of it?
Where's the
who
end?
decides to add on those
Where's
things?
the end? And when you said, Ed, they found 25 million, they don't just get to find 25 million. That's our money.
Yeah.
It's our money.
city
And Woburn
is-
has done a great job buying open space.
I always,
We've done a great job building our schools. We've done a great job with our infrastructure. And we've done it using the representatives that were elected by the residents in the city. And with all due respect to Michael, you're here to represent the businesses.
Correct.
I want to be clear, I'm here to represent the residents that live in Ward 5. And I know from talking to a majority of them, they don't support this. They didn't support it the last time around, if you look at the numbers. And hopefully, you know, when they understand what it is, they'll say, I'm not willing to put forward that extra money without knowing my elected officials are watching out and making sure it's going where I want to.
And, you know, Darlene brought up a good point when it started out with open space and then all these other things started getting tacked onto it. The city of Woburn in 2010, the city council passed a meals tax to procure open space.
Right.
And that money collected as of yesterday and today, when I talked to Charlie Doherty, it's about 800, top of the 800,000 a year since 2010.
Yeah.
So he said roughly around $5 million has been collected to buy open space. It goes into the general fund. The mayor has the authority to require, if he wants to buy open space, he has to go down to the city council and they have to authorize him. But that money is in the city budget to do it. And as of today, it's $5 million. So why would we have the meals tax to buy open space and then have CPA, which is also for open space? Like I told you, we have a recreation department. Our parks are run beautifully. We have a housing authority that is state funded and federally funded. It doesn't cost the city of Woburn a dime. If they need to do a project, they will get the money from the federal government and they'll get a bond and then the government will come out and they'll pay for it. We don't need to procure housing for affordable housing when we have a housing authority. So, I mean, it's just like to me, I told you last week, it's another layer of government that I don't think the city of Woburn needs at this time. Maybe that sometime down the road we might need it. But to the open space in Woburn, there's probably not even 5% of open space left in Woburn, if you can find some.
If you can find it.
I mean, I think
believe
it's mostly gone. But, you know, to come down to it at the end of the day, it's a tax. Maybe we might need it somewhere down the road, but right now, the city of Woburn does not need this burden with what Alderman Anderson said, a fire station, a library, a parking garage, and a school coming down the road. Those are all going on your tax bill.
And let's not fool ourselves, there is a financial impact, okay? They talk about the average residential bill. It's still gonna be, I'm telling you, around $50 a whack for each person. And then you have the businesses or person that rents, take the residential rental property, someone who has a 2-family or a 3-family. They're gonna pass that bill on to their tenants. So there's those tenants are gonna pay more money. Take the large commercial buildings, take the Cummings properties, for example. They're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars
Millions.
in taxes. So take a percent off that, so they're gonna pay another $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 in taxes a year. That could be $110,000. That's someone's job.
One of the arguments they use is the money is there and it's our money, we should go get it. I'm not in favor of just because the Commonwealth or the federal government says there's money available, you should run after it, because we know historically that there's so many strings attached to getting money when you have to write a grant and go all through that process and finally they say, here's $50.
Right, is it really free?
I saw one of your shows last weekend.
No, it's not free.
Last week there was a show on with the proponents of the CPA, and one of the drum beats they love to beat into the people's heads is that half the cities and towns in Massachusetts have adopted this.
That's right.
Well, you can look at the glass half full or half empty. Half the towns in Massachusetts have not wanted it. 389, 390 towns, cities and towns in Massachusetts, there's 160 of them that still said, no, we don't want this. We don't need it. You know?
But if there's only 1,000 people living in North Sasquatch, someplace out in
Western
out
Mass.
in the Himalayas there, wherever they call that place, west of Springfield, we don't know anything.
I don't think it was ideal.
Anyway,
I don't think it's ideally Woburn needs it because, like I said, you know,
Our fiscal position is such that I don't think we don't need it.
The city's being
Right.
run. The city's being run, I
Right.
think,
And I
very
think
well.
if we're gonna tax the people, which it is a tax, you really have an obligation to tell them exactly what you're using it
Right.
for. Not for some general idea of these various categories that an unelected body's gonna recommend. Now, it'll go to the city council, but we can only approve or reduce. We can't change it. So
Right.
they could come up with some idea that we don't support or maybe mildly support, but it's not the best use of the money, perhaps.
Right, we have
So
no
if you're gonna
say.
take the money from the people,
You don't have a
buy
say
it
in it.
via tax, we ought to tell the people what it's gonna be used for.
I don't know
Just-
if-
Just like we do with our
Yeah.
budget.
I don't know if you people got more information than I did, but did they explain where these nine people might, now mind you, we have a 3-member license board. We have a 5-member board of appeals. We have a 5-member, there's another board on there, the planning board
Planning
maybe.
board.
And then we have a 7-member conservation commission. We have a 9-member city council elected by the people of Woburn. Now what you're talking about, 9 people are gonna come in and make a decision and tell the city council, this is what we wanna use the money for. We don't need your approval. We're still gonna forward it to the state, but we're telling you, you need to, this is what we're gonna do. And we wanna buy this with our own money, but it's gonna probably cost you a little money somewhere down the road, because we're gonna come up 300,000 short. We wanna buy something for $1 million. We only got 700. Where's it coming from?
I'm still, takes a lot sometimes to get through the cranium here. You own a building next to the courthouse.
Yes.
Now you sell that building.
Yep.
And who pays the community preservation money? You or the new owner or
New
who?
owner, right?
Well,
Or
they'll
both.
both,
both.
because
Yeah.
there's going to be several documents filed. So the deed's going to be paid by the buyer. The mortgage is going to be paid by the buyer if they borrow. But the mortgage discharge, that's going to be paid by me.
Yeah.
So, each piece of paper that gets recorded, there's a separate charge for
Charge.
that. So that's part of the kitty.
Okay.
But
But I
but the main source of the funds
When
is
they
going to
start
be.
about, where's the $100,000 they keep talking about come off?
The what?
Of
I'm
your
sorry.
price, or the assessed price?
Well, they won't start, they won't start attaching their 1% of the appropriation of the value of your house. So if your house is worth $550,000,
Minus the first 100,
they're gonna tax you at $450,000.
Okay.
So they're gonna give you a $100,000 leeway down. But like I told you, the
So
numbers.
they're gonna get 1% of the 450.
So there's
Now, you
a,
only-
so someone's going to have to spend time to come up with that
Okay.
program to
Right.
figure that out. But
Okay,
that's
yeah.
another matter.
All right, so say now they get one, so now now is that deal as far as, like, say your property, I'm gonna charge you 1% of 450, and now that's the end of it as far as you're concerned? You go to Florida, what do you care? You know what I mean?
We pay that every
This is-
year.
You pay that every year?
Every year.
They don't say that.
For 5 years.
Yeah,
And you
they don't
can't,
say
and
it.
you
But
can't
every
repeal
year,
it.
unless
Yeah,
you get rid of it,
You
yes.
get a piece, so the new guy coming in, he has to pay.
Absolutely.
Well,
Well,
right,
if
see,
we,
they
if we
don't,
vote
they,
for the,
I
if the
think what-
CPA is supported, not
If the-
the,
if
not the deeds, not that. If the CPA passes, then everybody pays every year.
On their
but-
tax
On
bill.
their tax bill. But the way it is set up right now, the money that's being collected, the money that the proponents are saying, well, we're leaving that money on the table. That money's
Right.
being collected through real estate
registry of deeds.
transactions with the deeds.
Okay.
So that isn't
I'll find
an every time. So how much is that money really? Mike made that point earlier.
But we're
Where
not-
is that?
We're not actually
We
leaving it on
don't
the
know.
table. That money goes to fund the registry of deeds. I mean, they're saying that we're losing
Oh, for
out on it. It goes to the registry.
So a percentage
Yes.
of it?
Yes, a percentage of it goes into the registry of deeds fund. So, I mean, it's just, they split it 4 or 5 ways. It's like a.
For salaries and,
For everything.
I don't know how that
I don't
works,
know-
but
I don't know that too,
I have
yeah.
not been able to find a breakdown of what exactly has
Right,
been
nor have I,
generated from the
so-
city
So
of
if,
Woburn.
so if
and
Woburn,
Middlesex
if there's
County.
500 transactions in the city of Woburn, say in a year, times 20, what is it, $2,000? I mean, I don't know where you get it, at $20, $10,000, I don't know, What are we leaving on the table?
Or 20,000. But
yeah,
that's
20,000,
not-
but that's,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a huge number.
no.
It's a complicated thing, though, right? I mean, it's more complicated than people realize.
Like, Ed,
There's no
I know
answers to any of these.
I know
That's why I thought, sorry to
that's
interrupt you,
okay.
but that's why I thought it was important for people to, when we had our discussions last year about whether to put on the ballot and this year, I was clear not to take a position, what my personal position was on it. What I thought was that it was important for them, and I think most things that come before us, it's important for them to get out in the community, knock door to door, and explain to the people and educate them, if that's what they really want to do, as to what they're seeking. Because, there is a concern that people won't know what they're voting
Right.
on. And when you listen to it, it's nice, open space, affordable housing, those are all sound
Yeah,
great.
all great things. Yeah.
But really, it comes back to me, if you're going to tax the people, tell them what you're going to use the money for specifically.
And the misrepresentation is that when people, say the city council voted to put this on the ballot, some misconstruction has been made that the city council was in favor of this, that they wanted this on the ballot.
Right, which I think is was part of the plan.
Yes,
Right?
of course it
So
was.
we just want you to get it on the ballot, but the headlines, city council support
Approves it
CPA,
to put
which
on the
is
ballot.
absolutely, I guess it was true
I
to
don't
some
know, they're
extent.
very
but-
well-intentioned people, they seem very
No,
nice.
and
I don't
everybody
think-
has a passion, but I think they're nice people. I just don't think that this is the right time or the right place in the city of Woburn to have the CPA tax. I mean, like Darlene said, when you knock on the door and you explain to somebody, and I think I said it to you last week, if you ask me to sign a piece of paper that's going to raise my tax bill, how many signatures do you think they would have got? They needed to get 3,000. Do you think they would have got over 100? You're going to sign
I think they needed 12,500.
12 was it? Was it a-
1,250.
Okay.
But whatever it was, yeah.
You're not going to sign a piece of paper to raise your own taxes.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who does that.
No.
I just think in
Well,
this. And
I
the other-
disagree. People would sign it if it's something they believed in, but when they hear the whole, and I'm only going by my experience out talking with people about it, when they see what the city of Woburn has done, the open space that we have purchased, the schools that we have built, the infrastructure projects that we've done, so you have to, the constituents have to ask themselves, okay, is there something lacking in what we're doing now that we need to do this? And I believe the answer is no, there's nothing lacking. In some communities, there might very well be something lacking.
Right.
But in Woburn, there's not. And when people hear that whole story, and if they follow what's going on in Woburn, then they say, yeah, probably this is not something I would support.
In 2004, former Mayor Dever he was the rallying call for the CPA in 2004. It was a 3% tax back then. And he was the face of the, he was a proponent for it. He was out speaking. He was beating the drum for the city of Woburn. He thought the city of Woburn needed it. And he thought that the city of Woburn could take advantage of some of the funds that he didn't want to use in his budgetorial process.
That's right.
But 2004 and 2015 are totally different spectrums of the age difference here. From 11 years ago, we are well better off in the city of Woburn, and we are not needing stuff that we needed in 2004. But back then, it was defeated almost 5 to 1. I think it was like 7,000 to 2,000. It was crazy numbers against it. And the city of Woburn spoke loud and clear. And then to come back again, and now to do it again a year later, I don't think, I think enough is enough. We should have had a little break here and maybe reevaluated it and came back in 3 or 4 years if they wanted to try it. But to come right back from a November election to another November election, I don't think was right. Like I said, you get stuck with it for 5 years. They should come back in 5 years.
Yeah, well, I agree, and I think where you're getting hit at every turn, my income taxes are going up, my real estate taxes are going up, my water bill goes up, my medical insurance is going up. We let's face it, our federal taxes are going nowhere but up with the substantial amount of debt. I just think.
And what's not going up is salaries, because in corporate America, the average is 2-3% if people are lucky, right?
There's no Social Security just voted. There's no raise for 2016.
No raise.
But I mean, like if you own, we all both know people that own multiple properties in the city of Woburn. Some people own 18 properties. There's some big families in Woburn that acquire a lot of property. And they are going to get 18 separate charges on 18 separate bills. Alderman Anderson has a business and a residence. That's 2 bills to him. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes on that they think is fair, and just not even from the WBA standpoint. As a taxpayer and a voter in the city of Woburn, I don't think that's right.
What do you think the strongest position is that if you were we're anti, and now where would you sell it? The tax is going to be the most important. Everybody you meet, you just got to say you've got to vote against the tax. That's the other.
For me, it's not just about the taxes. It's about taxing people without representing people. And
I think that's a good argument.
That's huge for me. I don't think, and Michael said it earlier, I don't think we should be spending people's money without the people who represent them helping to decide how the money's being spent, and assigning some board that might very well collect salaries. I mean, really?
What if there's somebody on the one of the 9 is not a nice person? How do you get them off? I mean,
well, who appoints them? I don't know how.
I don't know who appoints them.
Who has the authority to appoint? And are they all Woburn residents? And do they have to be a taxpayer in the city of Woburn to be on the board?
All right.
It's all set out.
We've been here for half an hour.
Regulations.
All right, you get 30 seconds. You 30, and you can have 30.
Well, like I said,
we'll go home.
Like I said to you before, I said to you last week, Ed, from the standpoint of the Woburn Business Association and our members, we are strongly opposed to the CPA question on the ballot, question 1. We are asking the citizens of Woburn to vote no on question 1. It's not the right time, and the need for it is not there. It's just the Business Association doesn't think that it's a fair tax on the businesses for what they all do for the city of Woburn. So that is our position.
Well, we have a number of projects that we're going to be facing in the near future that are going to cause our taxes to go up, I am sure. We have the library, we have the schools, fire station, park and garage, and the city council and the mayor are going to be accountable for that. We're elected. If we're going to apply a tax to the citizens of Woburn as well, and the businesses of Woburn, we ought to tell you how we're going to spend it. And the CPA doesn't do that. This is a substantial tax on the city, over $1 million, and I just don't feel that the time is right for this. And if we're going to tax you, the elected officials should be responsible for how it's going to be paid, and that's not what this provides for.
Mrs. Bruen?
And I'll just echo Michael's thoughts.
Right.
Taxation without representation is wrong.
That's right.
And if you do decide to vote for this, I ask you that you understand what it is you're voting for. And that is going to require some attention to the details. Some details aren't there. If you have questions and you want to know both sides, there are plenty of people available to answer any questions you have. First of all, make sure you go out and vote. If you do decide to vote for it, make sure you know what you're voting for.
Well, it's time to go home and have dinner. Now, I think it's wonderful. This is wonderful. The Woburn Public Media Center is here for both sides of the story. It's open. People can come in here and say what they want to say and try and convince the people one way or the other. So I think it's a great opportunity. It's a pleasure to
Thank
have
you
you
for
people
having
come
us.
in. And Mike
Appreciated
from the
it.
Business Association. And I agree with Mike. I think you guys do a great job at City Hall.
Can I just add, when we have needed things in the city, we've gotten it done.
Right. Next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.